Now, I can remember the first time I heard that alcohol use disorder was a mental health disease. And I can remember actually laughing, and it actually made me angry because I always thought it was a choice that my wife had gone down, that it was a choice that she was drinking wine every night, and that had escalated from glasses to bigger bottles and bigger bottles on a consistent basis. And I thought that, well, that was her choice. This is not a mental health disease. And calling it a mental health disease is taking away her accountability and her culpability to her activities and to her behavior. Little did I know how actually wrong I was. The first time I heard it was when I was in a family weekend at a rehab facility in Palm Springs. I think this is probably her second or third rehab facility that she had been in. And family weekend is when you go, the whole family goes near the end of their stay. She was in a 30-day stay, so it was probably the third or fourth weekend that she had been, inside the facility. And the counselors showed movies about doctors and the history of alcoholism and why it is actually called a mental health disease. And I can remember being angry from it. And then later I talked to the counselors and they explained it much more in depth. And I began to soften up a little bit because it's really all about how you approach the disease. It never takes away the culpability or the accountability of the person, but it's a way to medically approach and how to solve the person's problem of their disorder. And you also have to understand that alcohol use disorder has been defined by the American Medical Association since 1956 as a mental health disease. It's been defined by the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism since 1980. And these are people who dedicate their lives to studying the disease and understanding the effects, the causes, and the originations of why people go down this road and why they are subjected to this disease and ultimately to the behavior. It's very important to understand that. It's very important to understand that it is a mental health disease. And some of the characteristics of it being a disease is that it manifests by itself, but it's also influenced by outside sources, by hereditary issues, family culture, trauma, stress, anxiety, depression, emotional issues. And it's a way to combat those issues, to hide those issues, to put a band-aid over those issues. The alcohol has become the solution to the alcoholic for their emotional baggage and for their emotional traumas. It's a big part of it. Hereditary issues are also a big part of it. ADH1B and ALDH2 on a chromosomal level will actually give someone a predisposition to becoming an alcoholic or suffer from alcohol use disorder. On that note, most of the people who do have a hereditary issue also grew up in a family culture where drinking is normalized. So to say it's just someone's choice, well, we all become products of our environment and also of our hereditary past. You mix that with emotional trauma, like sexual abuse or physical abuse or emotional abuse as a child or even as an adult, and it can send you down the path of anxiety and stress and depression. Life itself can give you that anyways, but these are a large part of the origins. And another important characteristic of why it's a mental health disease is because it's progressive. If nothing gets in its way, if there's no counseling or group therapy to get in its way, or medications, or just even an acceptance that there is a problem, it will continually get worse and worse and worse until you get into the later stages. And that's when the brainwave and the brain activities have completely altered. It will physically alter your brain. It actually rewires the brain function. Alcohol actually it hacks into the brain's communication system and interferes with how nerves send, receives, and processes information. And this is why their behavior is so altered. And common characteristics of alcohol use disorder are, number one, prioritizing alcohol. Alcohol becomes the most important thing in their life, more important than spouses, parents, children, and eventually more important than their own life and their own health. Placing blame on others, gaslighting, deflecting to other people, making frequent excuses, making up things to deflect away from what's going on in their life or in their decisions. Why are they drunk? Oh, but they're drunk because of the stress that maybe your spouse is giving you, and other nonsense like that. Drinking uncontrollably, binge drinking is a huge issue. And if the binge drinking becomes closer and closer and closer, you've actually stepped it up to a later stage. Financial issues, I mean, obviously, if you're drunk all the time, your productivity is going to go down. Your inability to produce income is going to be drastically changed. And this is why so many people become in such a destitute state. Shifting priorities around alcohol away from productivity. When the alcohol becomes more important than your relationships, than your own health, than your productivity, more important than your job or making money or the reality of your life, it's a serious issue. Behaving recklessly. I mean, I don't know how many videos I've made about things about my wife, and people think I'm being disparaged. No, I'm breaking it down and why it's a mental health disease. Driving through the front of our house is pretty reckless. Driving drunk consistently. Driving, my son and his friends around drunk in the early years. Things like that. Things that you would normally not do if you were not suffering from alcohol use disorder. Behaving recklessly is the most dangerous part, and it's the part that really gets in the way of society and puts society in harm's way. And to continue, some of the personality traits of someone who suffers from this malady is they're insecure, sensitive, impulsive, impatient, secretive, defensive, manipulative, easily aggravated, and withdrawn and prone to isolation. Isolation is a big part of it. Alcohol use disorder loves to isolate people. That's why community and connection is so vital to get somebody out of the situation. I hope this definition has helped. And if you really want further clarity in a book form, this is my wife's memoirs called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. It's the story of my wife's 25 year decline with alcohol use disorder, and ultimately she succumbed to the disease February 21st of 2020, almost 5 years ago. Again, I go live Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern. We have the Facebook group. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. And when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, I have the coaching program. It's called Set Up a Breakthrough Call. Link is in the bio. It takes about 45 minutes, and we go deep dive into what's going on with you and your family. The call is free. The course is definitely not. Don't set up an appointment unless all the principals there, the family and the alcoholic, but at least the person that I'm going to be working with needs to be online. And again, thanks so much for listening.